Welcome to Dave and Dharm Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystify.
Welcome everybody to the Dave and Dharm Demystify show. This week I'm on my own as Dave is away, but I do have a really esteemed guest with me, a company that actually I've been trying to contact for a while, but luckily I met at Money 2020 this year, and I'm so excited to have Leonardo Collado from Pismo with me today. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Leo, for those people that don't know you, would you just give us a bit about your background and then tell us what does Pismo do?
So I've been in payments for about 30 years. People sometimes pick an industry. I always say the payments industry picked me in different companies, but I've been at Visa for 15 years. It's been a great journey. About 2 years ago, Visa acquired Pismo. It's a core banking and digital processing platform, all in one, encompassing one, API native. And I've been appointed as General Manager to run Pismo globally on behalf of Visa.
Fantastic. And so my audience knows that I love to write about kind of core banking. And the obvious question I'm going to ask you, I've spoken to literally the good and the great in core banking, and they all claim to have this and that, etc. But what I'm really interested in is what separates you from the other vendors in the marketplace? What makes you different or special?
I think when you look at Pismo, we are real time by design. And I think where the world is moving today, it's real time. If you think how you consume everything with whether it's video, music, and that also applies to payment, it's about being immediate, on demand right now. And I think that's the way that Pismo was built. It supports full account and cycle life management with real-time, event-driven architecture. And this is kind of the promise. And this is why when you overlay the Visa foundation on this, where, hey, we want to be with our customer everywhere you want to be and at every moment you want to be, and delivering on that promise is where Pismo comes in as a true platform that allows us to provide services and support to our clients real-time. I think that's one of the key differentiators. And the other one, it's about we're flexible instead of being fixed. And this is where cloud-native, API-based, microservices-driven architecture helps institutions compose, adapt, and scale without rebuilding from scratch. So gone are the days where you had to hollow out the core and literally throw your old platform away. This is something where as you grab Pismo and you leverage our components, you could actually modernize over time. So I think these are the two key differentiators. I mentioned the Visa underlay, and I think this is where you have the power of Pismo plus Visa and the unlock of everything that Visa can represent: security, reliability, capacity, trust, right? Everything synonymous to Visa. And then all the value-added services that we can unlock in terms of risk and identity, cybersecurity, it provides you a whole package of not just processing, not just the real time, the flexibility, but an array of new services that are readily available to integrate.
I like the idea of kind of instant payment, I guess. But how does that work in a banking world that's kind of surrounded by 2+2? How do you make that happen?
I think that's the real challenge, right? Because customers expect everything right now. And this is where modernization becomes crucial and important. The real events allowed you, think about a world where you're providing a loyalty on demand, something that can be customized, something that can be AI-driven, personalized to the customer. And you're figuring out, once you're in batch and you're doing this after the fact, you've lost that opportunity. You lost that moment of magic, right? Where the world is going, it's contextual personalization, meaning I need to understand how you shop, why you shop, and be able to deliver, in this case, offers. And I'm able to do that in real time. I think this is the real unlock. What we're helping our banks and our financial institutions do that one component at a time. Be able to pick out our APIs and be able to deliver some of those experiences without necessarily having to replace their entire platform. The interaction between legacy platforms and APIs is something that Pismo can unlock and be able to start delivering those services.
Fantastic. So when you talk about real time, does that mean that even the actual understanding of the offer, like when you do your analytics to look at the customer data and you say, oh, Dharmesh is like in Starbucks now and I have an offer about Starbucks. Can you make it there and then? Is it actually a real-time database driving the offers?
I think that's the goal. Our Pismo's capabilities allow you to do that. And what we're able to do is feed all that information so it could happen and all that decisioning. So look at all that computing power. It's AI driven and all that computing power is happening real time. And I'm actually pushing that out and saying, hey, this is happening. This can be something that we can deliver. And this is where you go. This is why this conversation of modernizing is no longer about infrastructure, about a novelty. It's actually having to drive strategic growth in your business and consumer trust. Imagine companies and financial institutions understanding that between 8 a.m. and 8:05, you stop at your favorite Starbucks in a certain location and you have a matcha, whatever, and that offer is delivered for you exactly at the nick of time. I think that's where the world is going. Computing power is there. The ability for us to deliver those experiences are there through Pismo, through Visa, and having the ability to work with financial institutions to deliver this, it's what we're working on.
Fantastic. I mean, you probably won't be surprised, but I've spoken to so many banks. Even recently, I spoke to a building society and they were about to build like a data warehouse to do real-time offers. And I'm like, well, hold on one sec. Hey, that's in a warehouse. That's not going to be a real-time offer. That's going to be an offline calculation, right? And that's not the same thing as a real-time offer. And by the way, why are you still building a warehouse when we have technology that can do real-time and analytics in sub-second responses? And that, I think, is a danger for some of the banks, is to rely on even like their legacy thinking about technologies, like that they create kind of false boundaries about what they think is possible. Would you agree?
Totally. I like the point that you made because I think that's at the core of modernization. When you have a financial institution, what you have is separate platforms. They have a platform for cards. They have a platform for payments. They have a platform for core banking. And all these platforms today are segregated. They don't talk to each other. What ends up happening is all these platforms are feeding a data lake. And then that data lake is feeding downstream systems. By the time that you're able to deliver and actually act on that data, it's batch. It's what we call batch. And this is where, when you think about the power of Pismo, our platform supports more than 8 billion events a month. Think about that data, 8 billion events a month. I'm literally streamlining behavior. I'm really streamlining. And the ability for banks and institutions to grab the richness of this data and be able to impact new offers, new experiences, unlock really customized payment experiences is what we're aiming for. And I think this is where Pismo, being one platform, serving across core banking, whether it's retail, corporate banking, lending, whether it's payments, real-time payments, tokenized assets, this is going to continue to evolve. Or cards, whether you're talking about debit, credit, prepaid, commercial products, the ability to see your customer at any single point, whether they're withdrawing money from the ATM, whether they're making a digital payment, whether they're doing a SWIFT, whether they're doing a transfer, a money transfer, using Zelle as an example, whatever it is, or they're making a payment, you're able to actually understand consumer behavior and actually deliver those key experiences.
Interesting. I mean, I'm liking everything I hear at the moment. And one of the challenges, I think, for core banking vendors is that I guess that the ideal would be they had one version of the software, but inevitably they're customizing their one version to work within a certain jurisdiction because, you know, in that jurisdiction, let's say Pakistan, the data has to live in that country, but you could run the software from somewhere else, etc. So it's the localization, I guess, to countries' own kind of data practices, but also the regulations, the reporting for compliance, etc. How do you cope with that? Do you ship a separate instance for each country, or how do you manage this problem?
So it's an interesting question. So from a Visa perspective, we operate in more than 200 countries. From a Pismo perspective, we're scaling pretty fast. By the end of this year, we should be in around 20 to 25 countries open. And every time that we go into a country, we're obviously understanding what has to happen from a regulatory, from a compliance, from a scheme, from a technology perspective to be obviously respect the laws of everywhere that we operate. The software is the same. This is a software house. This is software as a service. So we don't change the software. What we're able to do is we have a layer of localization where we're able to understand what makes each of the countries unique. One of the unique things on cards, as an example, is installment payments. And installment payments are different around. And these are credit transactions that allow consumers to buy over time, buy now, pay later. There are multiple flavors in every country. Even within a country, you could have different types of buy now, pay laters or installments. All of these are actually embedded and built and customized into our platform through this orchestration layer. But the instance of a platform remains the same around the world. It's the same one, which is what makes, I think, Pismo pretty unique across the world.
Wow. Okay, I've got another challenge for you then.
You've already got that. So I think what we've been is in a journey, and we started with customers that started in a country, and they realized the power of consistency, of having a consistent offering around the world and saying, hey, if client A is in country A and travels to country B, or I have a new acquired customer in a separate country, the ability to provide the same service, have that uniformity and that consistency of approach of excellent service, unique experiences, it's what banks are looking for. So we've started this journey of actually expanding in opening new countries along with clients who have made that commitment with Pismo. Says, hey, I want you to go to this country because I want to be able to offer the exact same savers that I'm able to offer in where we started. So that's pretty cool, by the way.
That is very cool. That's very cool. But let me get back to my second challenge for you then is another reason why banks end up with multiple cores. And some banks have in excess of 200 cores sometimes, right? When you think about they have retail customers, they have business customers, they have wealth management. And then within those kind of subcategories, they also have current accounts, mortgages, credit cards. Can you support any product within your platform?
So I mentioned, and I think this is what makes Pismo unique. When Visa went out to acquire this service, we scanned the world and we looked at more than 100 companies that would be able to provide this service. What was unique about Pismo is that concept of one platform for banking and payments. This is the concept of being able to support your client in whatever financial product they're using. So whether it's core banking, so it's retail, so cash deposit accounts, savings, checkings, you name it, lending, mortgage, auto, corporate banking. We look at the other side of payments. I made reference earlier in the interview about what we're doing with real-time payments. And real-time payments, it's a transaction that requires, that's pushing banks to be real-time. It's the real-time decisioning. Pismo is able to support this. But also on the card side, the ability to support and have the capabilities to offer credit, debit, prepay, but also the ability to do commercial products, which is another type of world when you think about all the servicing that has to happen. I think that's what makes Pismo unique, the ability to have that one-stop shop for all financial products. That's pretty powerful.
Wow. A couple of years ago, I wrote an article called One Core to Beat Them All, right? And it was like this imaginary core with these, it's a single instance for any country in the world. It's a single instance for any product in the world. It's a single instance for every customer in the world. But it sounds like you've taken my article and turned it into a product.
I haven't written your article, but it seems like you actually were part of the founding group for Pismo. But I think that's the concept, being able to do this with one platform across the world, consistency, with the reliability and security that you overlay with the Visa power.
So there's one question that we literally for the last 2 years of doing this podcast, we've asked everybody, and that's really about AI. And maybe we'll come back to AI, but the question that I'm asking everyone this year is, what are your thoughts on tokenization? How will it affect core? And what do you think it'll mean for banks?
When you think about tokenized assets, I think this is all the possibilities in terms of cross-border payments, real-time settlement. When you think about real-time settlement today, even when you do settlement intraday, money doesn't necessarily move within the same day. So when you look at the possibilities of what tokenized asset with programmability and smart contracts, it's a real unlock. It's a real unlock to really drive the opportunities of moving money 24/7 by 365. That's powerful. And I think what banks are realizing is that their systems today are not necessarily prepared to support that shift to real-time settlement, to programmability, to the ability to move cross-border payments instantly. And again, this is, I think, the real unlock. And look, from a Visa Pismo perspective, we understand that that tokenized asset and core banking are uniquely attached. I think they're very organic in nature. And from a Visa perspective, we're closely tying our tokenized asset strategy with the core banking and releasing. We just had one of our biggest events in San Francisco where we talked a little bit about our tokenization and stablecoin strategy. And we're working on developing capabilities for both options. And we should see some great news. I'm kind of breaking news here, but we should be looking at new stuff and new offerings on stablecoins linked with Visa's capabilities towards the end of this year, beginning of next. These are real proof cases, not a science paper or not a white paper, but real proof of concepts that says, hey, this is how we can help our banks really move money in real time. This is how we could use smart contracts to really drive new services around the world. It's a changer. I think it's going to be a changer from the industry. And look, from a Visa perspective, from a Pismo perspective, this is the promise. Is at the core of Visa, at the core of Pismo, is really supporting our client in wherever money is moving, wherever our client is moving, wherever they're going, whatever instrument they're using. That's the promise of Visa. Hey, I want to be there wherever you are, being everywhere they want to be.
I love it. So what about agentic payments? I think we've designed a banking system and a world where we've assumed when it comes to money, that's an interaction between the people and potentially companies, but essentially it's people driven. But what happens when an organization offers an agent, let's say, that can plan my holiday, research it, find me the best hotels, best flights, best places to eat, book them all. But obviously these third parties will all need payment, right? And this agent will be working on my behalf. So it will start to increase the number of transactions it does. Do you see a world where, increasingly you will shift to agentic payments?
We've seen that AI transactions just in the US, I think the number is like 4,000% growth. And AI-driven transactions is immense. I think people are using AI in a way that, especially generative AI, in a way that hasn't been used before. I think what's different today with Agentic is the ability to provide that interaction and have contextual data about yourself, opting in and saying, hey, look at my payment transaction. Look at normally the type of restaurants that I like to go, the hotels that I like to stay. And that personalization is what's changing. And I think will continue to change and give rise to agentic commerce. And what's different is the ability to now say, not just give me, hey, the hotel or the tour packages or the restaurant recommendation, actually book for them and pay for them. I think that payment is where the infrastructures of today are going to be challenged because there's new authentication schemes, right? You have to authenticate this agent. How do you know that this is your agent doing your transactions? How do you know that this transaction is secure? So there's a lot of issues raising around security and fraud and authenticating the right transaction and providing that data and making sure that this is a secure ecosystem requires that computing power that legacy systems don't have today. So modernizing to be able to support agentic commerce is one of those things that's critical, and it has to be done sooner versus later because I think agentic will continue to be relevant. Agentic will continue to rise. I can't remember the website, but there's a website today that's only agents are allowed at the community where agents, think about a Reddit, where agents are talking to each other and influencing each other. Humans can actually go in and actually interact. They can see what their interaction is, but they cannot interact. This is agents alone. Think about that world. I mean, it's almost science fiction where you're now thinking about, hey, this is the future, but the future is now. It's happening as we speak. So the whole understanding that you're not longer, that agents, and this is where financial institutions are going to be challenged, that who's driving the purchasing decision is not necessarily a person or their decision, is an agent that understands the contextual behavior of that client. And financial institutions now having to influence not a person, but an agent. All of that requires modernization. All that requires modern infrastructure. And I think that's what, when you combine the power of Pismo, when you combine the power of Visa, that's what we're trying to deliver to the world.
Fantastic. I mean, when I look at things like tokenization and I look at agentic AI, I can't see banking looking the same anymore. I can see new products. I can see new ways of new business models, etc. I mean, how do you think about agentic AI and tokenization? Do you see them as separate events, or do you start to see a new world or imagine a new world on top of them?
It's evolving, right? I think it's an evolution. And today, when you look at both of them, they're kind of two trends that are rising separately. And I think the probability of, when you think about tokenized assets and what agentic, I mean, it's just a new settlement currency. Why would an agentic be able to use, if today is using a card, tomorrow use a stablecoin? I think time will tell, but the convergence of all these technologies, I think, is inevitable. And I think we'll see that evolution of payments. And we're seeing it, we saw it with cards, and how cards now are in the center of it, and how digital payments and RTP payments are evolving. And there's advantages and disadvantages to all. And I think this is the power of having a platform that supports. Where the future is going is where you need a platform that's able to orchestrate whatever types of payments, whatever type of currency, whether it's digital currency, whether it's an RTP payment, whether it's cards, whether it's whatever the future holds, your payment platform has to be so flexible that it's orchestrating and saying, oh, stablecoin, I know how to do that. Or RTP payment, I know how to do that. Oh, cards, I know how to do that seamlessly without friction to be able to comply with whatever the customer wants to do. And that's why I think the real unlock and the real magic is having that one-stop shop that's able to deliver that orchestration across all payments instruments.
Wow. I just love listening to you, Leo. As I said to you in Money 2020, there are a few people that get very excited about the industry, and I certainly am one of them, right? And then people look at me as if I'm crazy. Like, you're getting excited about banking and technology. What I'm interested in is, like, what drives your passion in this space? Because you're clearly not only passionate, but you have a strong vision and a practical, pragmatic view on what's possible now versus later on. So just love all of that. But what drives it for you?
Look, I think that's curiosity. One of the things is curiosity. I've been in this industry for about 30 years. Literally, I started out of high school, and then I'm probably aging myself here. And understanding technology and unlocking the power of technology and seeing how that translates in payments. And I've seen the evolution from early years of working in this industry, and what you've seen in the last 5 years. I think it became a cliche when we talked about the pandemic and the evolution of payments throughout, because there was no physical, and contactless pushed, and e-commerce grew even more, and we saw digital payments growing. I think seeing all this evolution and being part of it and being part of shaping that, and being in a company like Visa, I think the vision that Visa has in terms of really delivering seamless, frictionless, unique, elegant, personalized experiences, what continues to drive us and personally drives me. I think this is an exciting space. It's going to continue to be. We haven't even spoken about quantum computing, but think about the power of computing in the hands of payments and what that does for security, for experiences, for driving adaptive behavior analytics, being able to understand and predict your behavior for loyalty, for fraud, for protection. I mean, the unlocks are tremendous. And I think this is what makes this industry, makes working at Visa and makes working at Pismo, which is at the core of modernization, makes it really exciting for me.
Wow. Look, you're singing off my hymn sheet, because I'm also a big fan of quantum. But what's your perspective on quantum?
Again, I think there's an evolution of it. And I think we're still a few years away from it. Some people say 5, some people say 10. Time will tell. But I think unlocking the power, being able to use the computing power to drive better analytics, to drive better security. And it's going to force us all to really rethink the world of payments around these areas, authentication, unlocking. I think something that unlocking cryptography today, the current cryptography today could take you years. If you think about quantum computer, that going through all these keys could happen in a minute. So it's really going to challenge us to think about how we look at authentication, how we look at authorizing transactions, how we process payments, how we bring experiences and all these algorithms for driving personalized experience with much larger computing power is going to be exciting.
Yeah, look, I'm going to mention it very briefly, but it's not an advert for my book, but I have a book coming out in September, and literally the thesis is what I call the convergence. It's quantum, digital twins, really contextual data about customers. Agentic AI and tokenization will reshape banking. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think I like where you're going. I think this convergence of technology and leveraging the benefits of what agentic, tokenized assets, we talked about it earlier. I think the industry is up for a really modernization and just disruption of how we do payments, we move funds, we personalize experiences. I think that you'll see all of them converging and leveraging the benefits of each other.
Fantastic. And we haven't really talked too much about the longer term future, but what do you think beyond 2035, what does it look like in the world of banking?
We kind of touched a little bit. I think it's this convergence of technologies, right? It's this when banks who are fully modernized, and banks need to understand that there's a need for speed, for adaptability and relevance, and the institutions that understand this complexity and manage this complexity across technologies, across rails will be the companies that would actually be there in 2035. I think what you'll see is companies that are modernized, providing and leveraging the power of AI, generative AI, providing those experiences, having the ability to cross rails. Today, we're talking about tokenized assets, but what's the next currency? What is the next currency that we will have to manage? And having the ability for banks to manage across these technologies, across payment rails, I think it's going to be the future of payments. Institutions that are able to do it are institutions that will be successful, but they have to act on it today. In order for them to be relevant, to be adaptable, to have the speed, to be able to compete with new rising competitors, to be able to keep the demand on regulations and meeting customer demands, the time for institutions to be relevant in 2035 is now to act on it and modernize their infrastructure.
Great. And I guess my last question is really more about Pismo, because I don't know as much as I ought to. But I mean, who would you say are your flagship customers? Who would you boast about as having as a customer? And what's your plans globally?
Look, we continue to expand. And I think the most exciting thing about Pismo is that we won the mind share of our customers. And Pismo was a strong brand. It continues to be a strong brand. But when you add the power of Visa and you combine Pismo and Visa, it becomes an even powerful brand. Think about putting your business, if you were a bank or an institution, putting your business in a fintech. This is the backbone of your operations. What's happening now is Pismo is a fintech, but now with the reliability and the backing of Visa. So the future of Pismo will continue to be expanding and opening new markets. We're in the range of 20 markets. By the end of the year, we'll be in between 25 plus markets. We continue to expand. We have some of the largest customers in Latin America, like Itaú, as one of our key markets. We just won, can't mention the name, but we just won one of the most important US banks using our core banking capabilities. That's really exciting. We're modernizing core banking for another large institutions, global institutions in 78 countries. That's really exciting. But there's names like Lunar Bank in Denmark, Butte, Bank in Argentina, T2P in Thailand, Dosh in New Zealand. I mean, the list goes on and it's continued to grow across the world. We just launched one of the largest neobanks in Latin America, Nequi, as an example, and their expansion in Colombia. So these are the big names continue to come, and the tier one names continue to come, which is what makes this really, really exciting. So the future of Pismo is bright. We continue to look at what makes us relevant today and strengthening and enhancing the platform. But we're also making investments, looking at AI, looking at tokenized asset, looking at what comes next. I think one of the coolest things that we're working on today is this single cloud versus multi-cloud strategy. When you think about what we're doing is Pismo's working to adjust our platform to become cloud agnostic. Pretty cool stuff. So it's not just about creating new services, but also saying, hey, how do we replicate some of what made legacy so attractive on the cloud, and becoming cloud agnostic to operate, whether it's AWS or Azure, whatever it is. Listen, it's the promise of visas. The promise of visas being everywhere a customer wants to be.
Fantastic. Look, is there anything, like our audience is a mix of fintechs and banks, and they may be large tier one banks or they may be smaller community banks. Is there any tips that you would give to a bank? What's your favorite piece of advice to give to banks these days?
I'm sitting across the world with fintechs, with tier one banks, with credit unions, with digital banks. And to me, what I continue to say, modernization is not longer an afterthought. It's not something that is just for the tech geeks like you and I who love technology, right? It's shifted from the technology, from the data center room into the C-level discussion. This is a strategic discussion, guys. We really need to sit down and really look at modernizing infrastructure as a business strategy, because this is how you win consumer trust, and this is how you actually grow your revenues. If you're worried about growing your company, it starts with modernizing your core. It's about modernizing your infrastructure. So this is kind of the tip that I say, it has to be part of your business strategy for speed, for adaptability, for relevance. And look, I say the institutions that win will be those that can evolve continuously, meeting customer demands, regulations, and competitions. And that's where I think Pismo comes in and saying, we can help, we can support you in that journey.
Fantastic. I was really excited to have this conversation, and you definitely have not let me down. So I really thank you for sharing so openly and vividly your thoughts on the banking space, and wish you every success. No doubt you're going to be a much bigger success too as well. So thank you so much, Leonardo.
Thank you so much for having me, and look forward to our next chat and giving you a progress update of how Pismo continues to expand and help our clients modernize their infrastructure. So thank you very much for having me.
I want the exclusive on the 78 country rollout.
All right, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
All righty, thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to Dave and Dharm Demystify. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and tune in next time as we take another topic and demystify it.